So, Honorable Madam is about to arrive in a minute. So, may I request all of you to please rise as we welcome our guests. They will be arriving any moment soon. I request all of you to kindly rise as we welcome our very distinguished guests for today's one-day international seminar on innovative interventions in biology and medicine. And please join us in extending a warm welcome to Honorable Madam Professor Sangeeta Srivastava, our esteemed keynote speaker, Professor Shailja Mathur from Rutgers University, Professor Ashish Khare, our registrar, and our Dean, Research and Development, and convener of today's seminar, Professor S.I. Rizvi. To mark the beginning of this significant event, we shall commence with the auspicious lighting of the lamp ceremony. And may I humbly request our distinguished guests to please come forward for this ceremonial act of symbolizing wisdom, purity, and removal of darkness through knowledge. Thank you. Now I request our distinguished guests, Honorable Vice Chancellor Ma'am, Professor Shailja Ma'am, Professor Ashish Khare Sir, our registrar, and our Dean, Research and Development, to please come and take their seats on the dais. Now we move on to the next part of our program, the Kulgeet, the University Anthem. The Kulgeet embodies the rich heritage and the enduring legacy and values of our esteemed institution. It reflects the spirit of knowledge, unity, and progress that the University of Allahabad represents. To perform the Kulgeet, we have the very talented students from the Department of Music and Performing Arts, University of Allahabad, led by Dr. Vishal Jain. Mr. Priyanshu is on the harmonium, Mudit, Zenith, Anshika, Shubhi, Yashi on the vocals, and Mr. Anubhav on the tabla. So please proceed with the Kulgeet.
सरदार, गाते रहेंगे शुदिन तुम्हारी सुयश गाथा गाए। जय जय तुम्हारी विश्वविद्यालय इलाहाबाद। जय तुम्हारी जय तुम्हारी जय तुम्हारी।
Thank you, Dr. Vishal Jain, and to your entire team of talented performers. And that was a really soulful rendition of our Kulgeet, and your beautiful voices have set the perfect tone, filling the atmosphere with pride and reverence for our own University of Allahabad. Now, I would humbly seek permission from our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Madam, to officially commence the program. Thank you, ma'am. So, we will now express our gratitude and appreciation to our distinguished guests for honoring us with their gracious presence today, and by presenting them a small bouquet and a memento. And to do the honors, first of all, I would like to invite our convener of this seminar, Professor S.I. Rizvi sir, to kindly felicitate our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Madam. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause. We are very honored to have amongst us as our chief guest and keynote speaker, Professor Shailja Mathur ma'am from Rutgers University. And may I also request Rizvi sir to kindly felicitate our chief guest. I now request the coordinator of Center for Food Technology, Professor Neelam Yadav ma'am, to kindly felicitate our respected registrar, Professor Ashish Khare sir. Thank you, ma'am. May I now request Head of the Department of Family and Community Science, Professor Neetu Mishra ma'am, to please felicitate the convener of this seminar, Professor S.I. Rizvi sir.
The soul behind this, the organization of this seminar, may I request Professor Shefali Nandan to come on stage and felicitate Arup, Dr. Arup Acharji.
Thank you, sir, for those kind words. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as we gather a pace for the program, we'll move on to our next section. As we gather here today to celebrate innovation and knowledge exchange, it is my privilege to announce the official release of the abstract book for this seminar. This compilation showcases the significant research contributions of scholars from both University of Allahabad and many other universities across India, also from across the world. It reflects the depth and diversity of the scientific advancements in human disease and health. And to mark this special moment, I invite our esteemed dignitaries on the dais to formally unveil the abstract book. Thank you, our esteemed guests, for unveiling this valuable compilation. So this will be soon made available as an e-format to all the participants. Honorable Vice Chancellor Ma'am, our esteemed Chief Guest and Keynote Speaker, Professor Shailja Ma'am, our respected Registrar, Professor Ashish Khare Sir, convener of this seminar, and our Dean Research and Development, Professor S.I. Rizvi Sir, distinguished deans of various departments, of various faculties, heads of the departments, coordinators of centers, esteemed faculty members, representatives from the press and media, valued participants, and my dear students, a very warm welcome to all of you. India today stands at the brink of a major health crisis, a silent yet rapidly escalating pandemic of metabolic and lifestyle disorders. The alarming rise of diabetes, obesity, hypertension, and cardiovascular diseases is no longer a distant concern. It is an urgent reality affecting millions across both urban and rural populations. Driven by changing lifestyles, dietary habits, sedentary behavior, and increasing stress levels, these disorders now impose a significant burden on our healthcare system, economy, and society at large. This growing epidemic demands immediate, innovative, and collaborative action. Against this backdrop, the theme of today's international seminar, Innovative Interventions in Human Health and Disease, could not be more relevant. This platform unites researchers, educators, students from across the country and beyond, facilitating an exchange of insights, pioneering research, and groundbreaking solutions. This seminar is not just about disseminating knowledge, it is about transforming ideas into actionable solutions. It is an opportunity to reaffirm our collective commitment to scientific progress and its application in improving human health. So as we begin this seminar, I encourage each one of you to actively participate, exchange ideas, and take full advantage of the intellectual richness this seminar offers. I now request our respected Registrar Sir, Professor Ashish Khare, to please introduce our esteemed University of Allahabad and welcome our distinguished guests and delegates.
Thank you, Dr. Arup, for inviting me. The University of Allahabad, established on the 23rd of September 1887, is one of the India's oldest and most prestigious institution of higher learning, known as Oxford of East. It has nurtured generations of scholars, scientists, leaders, and visionaries over past 137 years. Originally, it was founded as Muir Central College in 1873, and it became a full-fledged university in 1887, making it fourth oldest university of India, recognized as the Institute of National Importance when it regained Central University status in 2005. The University of Allahabad is an institution deeply rooted in scholarship, offering a broad spectrum of disciplines under 4 major faculties: arts, science, commerce, and law. It also houses different specialized institutions, independent centers, and so on. The university has gained its international recognition with a ranking in the band of the 401 to 500 in QS Asia ranking in 2020, and last year in the NIRF 24, it was ranked in the band of the 201 to 300 in engineering and 101 to 125 in management. A cradle of intellectual and nationalist movements, the university played a key role in India's independence struggle, with many of its students making their ultimate sacrifice for freedom. It has produced some of India's most distinguished leaders, including Dr. Zakir Hussain, Dr. Shankar Dayal Sharma, Shri Vishwanath Pratap Singh, Chandrasekhar, Madan Mohan Malviya, founder of BHU, Pandit Govind Ballabh Pant, Professor Murli Manohar Joshi, and so on. Its alumni excelled in politics, judiciary, literature, science, and administration, shaping the destiny of modern India, impacting nation's governance and academia. Spread across different regions of the Prayagraj, the university's historic Vijayanagaram Hall and Senate Hall reflects its architectural grandeur. With 11 affiliated colleges, the university continues to expand its academic outreach. Governed by the President of India as a visitor, the university is led by the Vice Chancellor, Professor Sangeeta Srivastava, the first women to hold this position. In last 4 years of her tenure, growth of university is at least 40 folds or more than that. She filled approximately 1,000 positions with new entrants. Out of them, approximately 360 are the faculty members and more than 600 non-teaching staff. The average of recruitment in her tenure is more than 1 recruitment per 1 working day of the university. This average seems to be the hypothetical, but she made it possible. This massive drive gave a new lifeline to the university. On administrative front, the university got several new buildings and resolved many old issues which were unsolved from past, from the several decades. On academic front, several seminars, conference, lectures, MOUs, GYAN programs were organized to interact with the international and national scholars of repute. As the University of Allahabad moves forward, it continues to modernize its academic curriculum, research infrastructure, and global collaborations, ensuring its place among the world's leading universities. It remains committed to nurturing knowledge, fostering critical thinking, and preparing future leaders, staying true to its motto, Quod Rami Tot Arboris, as many branches, so many trees. This institution, rich in heritage and academic excellence, continued to illuminate the path of knowledge, embracing progress while preserving its glorious legacy. Thank you. Over the roop.
Thank you, sir, for highlighting our institution's rich legacy and also Madam's spectacular leadership that we have witnessed over the past 4 years. I'm standing here because of Madam. Back in June 2022, I joined, it was her panel that selected me, and today I'm standing, I think most of us, I think 50% of the crowd would owe their presence in this hall, all due to Madam's hard work. It is now my privilege to invite our seminar convener and Dean Research and Development, Professor S.I. Rizvi sir, to introduce today's theme, innovative interventions in biology and medicines.
Honorable Madam, Vice Chancellor, the keynote speaker, all the way from US, the Registrar of University of Allahabad, Professor Ashish Khare, distinguished deans, heads of departments, and my dear students and participants who are going to attend and attending this international seminar. Let me tell you how this seminar started. It was just 15 days back when I came to know from a source that Professor Shailja Mathur is going to come to India, and then I contacted her because the whole of last week were holy holidays and we had very little time to manage this. And I'm extremely thankful to her that she gave us time to visit Allahabad and to give this seminar. So a big round of applause again for Professor Shailja Mathur. Let me tell you that while I was in conversation with her through emails, she was preparing to come to India. And she was deep in work. All the research papers and projects she had to wind up. She was coming for a few days. And she always replied to me whenever, because of time difference, there was a lot of problem in communicating with her, but always she would find time to reply to me. So as it happened that she is today, she is over here, and I suppose she is going to speak on her topic of diabetes and pre-diabetes. So I thought it was proper because we did not have, because of the paucity of time of the Honorable Vice Chancellor, we did not have a time to go into the afternoon session, and therefore I assume that there are a large number of people who are not from biological sciences, and therefore I would like to introduce a few aspects of diabetes so that you will be able to better appreciate what Professor Mathur is going to speak. As you all know, diabetes is a condition when the blood glucose goes high. But then is it possible to actually decrease blood glucose? Because blood glucose in the blood is entirely very much for our protection. We cannot get energy without glucose in the blood. Our cells are tuned to metabolize only glucose for energy. And therefore, there is a very short, narrow range of blood glucose that is permissible. So the normal range of glucose is approximately 70 milligrams per 100 ml to approximately 100 milligrams per 100 ml. Now what happens, that what should happen if blood glucose goes high? Why is it such a problem? Because once the blood glucose gets high, the normal process is that we secrete a hormone known as insulin. And this insulin actually facilitates the entry of glucose inside the cells. When insulin is absent, glucose doesn't go inside the cell, although it is very high in the blood. And because the cells start starving because of the absence of glucose. So this is the major problem, that we need to do something to actually put glucose inside the cells. But interestingly, there are some cells in the body which do not rely upon insulin for the entry of glucose. And these cells are the nerve cells, the cells of the retina, and the cells of the kidney. And it is only these cells which are affected by long-term diabetes, and we have complications related to eye, to the nerves, and to the kidney. So this is the problem of diabetes. Now, it is said that this part of the world, India and the subcontinent, is the capital of diabetes in the world. You have large number of diabetics in India. So why should some part of the world should be high in incidence of diabetes? So people have tried to explain this. And the reason is that there are very, very interesting hypothesis that has been given, that is known as the thrifty gene hypothesis. So thrifty genes is a term given to those genes which were which were helpful to us maybe 1,000 years back. But now those genes are not important to us. And that's why we are prone to developing diabetes. Because this part of the world was always having famines and long periods of when there was no rainfall. And all those people who were obese, who could store fat, they were very suitable for going long periods of starvation. But those people who were lean and thin and very healthy as per today's standards, they would not survive these long periods of famine, and they would die. So we have inherited those genes which make us fat, which make us increase our blood sugar even though we eat less. We make us hold on much fat although we eat less. And we are inheriting all these genes now, but now the problem is of plenty. And all the population is eating more than what is required in terms of calories. So this is the thrifty gene hypothesis, and this is why this part of the world we are in fact genetically predisposed to diabetes. And something else that I read last night was that because of this poverty and eating less, the height of the women has decreased in Southeast Asia over a period of time. And when the height decreases, the babies are born premature, because the pelvic region also decreases in size. And so babies are born premature, and the beta cells of the pancreas are almost the last cells which are made during gestation period. So we are born with less developed beta cells. And this is why we are genetically predisposed to diabetes. So with these introductory words, I think I have set the tone for the lecture of Professor Shailja Mathur. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. And as usual, your storytelling prowess has helped us understand diabetes. So lucidly you have explained the finer nuances of glucose metabolism and how it impacts, its dysregulation impacts, and how evolution has played a so critical role. So now we would move on to the next part of the program. So yesterday we had a fantastic poster presentation, and it was one of the key highlights of this seminar, because there we could involve the younger generation, and we had a very highly enthusiastic participation from research scholars from across the country. We had response with over 55 abstracts were submitted, although time that we gave was only 7 days, and that too just before Holi. So we really appreciate your participation. The poster presentations were held, and many people had participated, even from institutions like Manipur Central University. So these posters were meticulously evaluated by our expert committee, and now it is time to recognize and honor the outstanding contributions made by our participation. And it will be my privilege if our Honorable Vice Chancellor ma'am could give them an award certificate and prize. I would request the volunteers to kindly assist. I will call out the name of the awardees. Please come up on the stage. So the first, the consolation prize goes to Ms. Priyanka Singh from Center for Biotechnology. Ms. Priyanka Singh. So they are getting an award certificate and a book. Congratulations, Priyanka. The second consolation prize goes to Ms. Shailja Verma from Department of Zoology.
टेप था, टेप मंगवा लो, टेप।
Ms. Shailja Verma from Department of Zoology. She gets the Consolation Award. Congratulations, Shailja. Now, the third prize, it goes to Ms. Akanksha Srivastav from Center for Food Technology. Ms. Akanksha. Congratulations, Akanksha. Our next award, the second prize, goes to Dr. Garima Yadav from Department of Biochemistry. Congratulations, Dr. Garima. And finally, the first prize. The first prize goes to Ms. Shirshika Singh from Department of Family and Community Science. A huge round of applause. It's just an observation that all the winners were females, so boys, you need to catch up. So thank you, ma'am, and thank you, sir, and congratulations to all the winners. And to those who could not secure an award this time, remember, it's just more than just a competition, and this experience must have been an opportunity for all of you to learn, grow, and contribute to a meaningful scientific discussion. And we hope that you take back not just memories, but valuable insights and inspiration for your future research endeavors. Now, moving forward, we have the great honor of unveiling a significant academic contribution, a book authored by two very distinguished faculties from our university, Professor S.I. Rizvi and Dr. Gaurav Mazumdar. And to formally inaugurate and release the book, I invite our esteemed dignitaries on the dais to do the honors. And ladies and gentlemen, please, a huge round of applause to honor their valuable contribution to scientific community.
All of us know that even without an alarm clock, we wake up at the designated time every day. And by the time your sleeping time comes, you start feeling sleepy. So this is the effect of a circadian rhythm. Circadian means every day that happens, all the changes that take place from the morning to evening in the 24-hour period. This is what is known as the biological clock or the circadian rhythm. Now, what has happened that we were born and we evolved into a environment where there was sunlight and then total darkness. So we have evolved in this type of scenario. Now, over a period of 150 years or something like that, we have started living in this artificial light. So now our circadian rhythm is getting disturbed, because from morning till evening, there is no sunlight in our lives. We are always living in this artificial light. So how this artificial light is impacting our circadian rhythm, and this circadian rhythm is not that simple. Every day, if you measure your temperature, your pulse rate, your blood pressure, so in the 24-hour period, you will find that always there is a oscillation of these parameters. And this is what is circadian rhythm. A very important fact that always you will find that heart attacks take place around 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. during these morning hours. So this is so very important, this circadian rhythm. Now, because of this artificial light, there is so much of problem, and we still don't know how this artificial light is impacting our day-to-day biological clock. And this book actually relates this circadian rhythm with our biological aging process. So, do we have started aging much faster, or there is no effect, and how aging affects all other different parameters? It is so. This book is based upon these two parameters. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for explaining so lucidly the importance of circadian rhythm, and congratulations to you and Dr. Gaurav for penning this wonderful book. And thank you to our esteemed guests for taking the pains to inaugurate and celebrate this book. Now it is time, and it's my privilege and honor to invite the guiding force behind our institution, a leader whose vision and commitment continue to inspire academic excellence and research innovation in our university. Our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Sangeeta Srivastav ma'am, I would request her to kindly address the gathering and share her thoughts with us. Madam.
Still morning, 5 minutes to 12. So a very good morning to all the faculty, staff, and students present here. I welcome everyone on the dais, Professor Shailja Mathur, our keynote speaker, Professor Rizvi, and Professor Ashish Khare, our registrar. I must thank Professor Rizvi many times for taking all the pains to organize this event. A beautiful event, very well directed and choreographed, I would say, in terms of films. So he has done a very good job at everything. He has gone into the finest details of preparing the minute to minute, and the abstract book also I found was very meticulously prepared. And I think the book will take us a long way. And I hope to see those very nice posters. The gift of those posters have already been given, but I think they would be very, very interesting to see those posters. When I was getting this hall made, I always had this in mind that we will have so many conferences and seminars and so many events that can be that can take place upstairs and on this floor of the Ishotope complex, and that is exactly how it is unfolding. So it is actually very heartwarming to see everything happening in the pattern one had envisaged. On today's topic of human health, I would not take long, but I would say that within our bodies, a war is constantly being waged. And we are every day on war, fighting diseases. We saw the physical pandemic, which was a biological war actually. But there is a biological war which is going on inside our bodies, which we don't see, but it is constantly taking place. And the body is such a smart design for which we must thank Almighty for gracing us with such a complicated and intricate human body made of clay, and having all the systems built within. There is direct fight and there is indirect fight against the diseases that attack our body. We don't know so much about the direct fights, but the indirect fights that the body wages against the diseases that are constantly attacking us are the antioxidants and the oxidative stress that we go into off and on. So it is basically the oxidative stress that troubles us the most, and the antioxidants are the fighters, the soldiers. Many of you would have seen on television, a helicopter comes, wounded soldiers are picked when the physical war is happening. The wounded soldiers are picked and those soldiers are brought to the hospitals, and then they are repaired, stitched, surgery done, and then they are again sent back. Same process, without our knowing, happens inside our body. So there are these many chronic diseases which exist, and slowly they are devouring us. If we do not consume and we do not have a good store of antioxidants in our body, then perhaps the enemy soldier would take over us. So these are some chronic diseases like diabetes, like especially the type 2 diabetes. Professor Rizvi already told you that India is the world capital of type 2 diabetes. And then the blood pressure. By the time you cross 40, you are on the wrong side of 40. Most of the times, we Indians are gripped with either one of them or with both of them. So how to reduce this stress, and what should we do so that we are not impacted by type 2 diabetes so much, would be intriguing. And I myself have been an avid reader and have been collecting a lot of information on this type 2 diabetes as and when and from wherever I get information, because learning is ubiquitous. So everywhere and anywhere you just pick up your lessons as to how and why we can reduce this impact of type 2 diabetes. But as against us, we would say that all the festivals in India are celebrated with sweets. Holi recently passed by. We made gujiyas, haven't we? And then there was Diwali, shortly, 3-4 months back, we made. And the sevai. I often asked Professor Rizvi, is it a revenge that you take with putting so much sugar on the sevai? So the sevai, and then the Raksha Bandhan. Do we want to kill our brothers, giving them so many sweets? So there is a constant overload of sweetness in all our festivals, and that has become so culturally rooted in our systems that we are unable to get rid of it. And hence, as a gift, big gift hamper wrapped is the type 2 diabetes, which attacks us and then never goes. It is like a desi dog inside our body, and we have to keep it on the leash. If we don't keep it on the leash, then what the desi dog does, we know when we go on a morning walk. So we must learn from Professor Mathur as to what advisory she has been giving to the South Asian Indians living in America. All those Indians are again culturally rooted to India. They are more Indians than we are. So they also suffer the same disease. So what are the factors, how we can prevent it, what are the foods, etc., etc. Maybe she will illuminate us today with her words. Thank you very much, and I hope you will have a nice presentation from her.
Thank you, ma'am, for your enlightening words and your advice to keep on learning. I think that's the most important message that I took home, that we cannot stop learning. And also, thank you for the steadfast commitment that you have shown for promoting academic excellence and innovation at the University of Allahabad. Your leadership continues to guide all of us, inspire us in the pursuit of knowledge, research, and meaningful contributions to the society. So, ladies and gentlemen, all the dignitaries, it is now time for the keynote lecture. It is my pleasure and great honor to invite our esteemed keynote speaker, Professor Shailja Mathur from Rutgers, USA. So this will be a PowerPoint presentation. So to ensure a seamless experience, we would now take a brief moment to prepare the stage for the session. And as we do so, we will also play a brief introductory video that highlights the remarkable contributions Professor Shailja Mathur has made, her extensive research, academic achievements, her academic journey, and her invaluable impact to the community, both scientific and the community at large. So volunteers, may I please ask your assistance to clear the desk? Lights off. शुभम जी प्रोजेक्टर ऑन कीजिए. शुभम जी प्रोजेक्टर. ये लाइट ऑफ, इसको भी ऑफ करना. ये लाइट्स ऑफ होगा और ये टेबल्स हटाएंगे ना. इनको ऑडियो ऑफ करने के लिए रहेंगे. इसको बंद करो. अभी इसको लगा देते हैं. कुछ दिख ही नहीं रहा.
Distinguished guests, respected academicians, teachers, researchers, and
please settle down. Lighting.
Distinguished guests, respected academicians, teachers, researchers, and Dear participants, it is our honor and privilege to introduce today's keynote speaker. In the world of academia, certain journeys stand apart, not simply due to their success, but for the deep impact they leave on communities, transforming countless lives along the way. Professor Shailja Mathur's academic odyssey began with distinction at Banaras University, where she pursued her postgraduate studies in food and nutrition, BHU, renowned for nurturing critical thinkers and leaders, provided the foundation upon which she would build an extraordinary career dedicated to nutrition, public health education, and disease prevention. Crossing geographical and cultural boundaries, her quest for knowledge took her to Rutgers University in New Jersey, United States. Here, over the last 2 decades, Professor Mathur has solidified her reputation as an accomplished educator, innovative researcher, and committed public health advocate. At Rutgers, Professor Mathur spearheaded pioneering community-led health interventions, particularly addressing pre-diabetes and diabetes prevention among undeserved and immigrant communities. Her programs, including the renowned New Jersey Empower to Prevent initiative, have exemplified how culturally sensitive and community-driven health interventions can lead to transformative health outcomes. Her innovative approaches, characterized by cultural humility, evidence-based strategies, and collaborative partnerships, have earned her numerous accolades from prestigious national and international organizations. Moreover, Professor Mathur has consistently secured substantial federal and state grants, reflecting her capacity to translate academic excellence into impactful real-world change. Today, as a distinguished keynote speaker, Professor Mathur returns to India to share her expertise and visionary insights. Her address promises to illuminate novel pathways towards community health empowerment and chronic disease prevention. Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed an honor to welcome a scholar whose global impact reflects the spirit of academic excellence and social responsibility. Please join us in extending a warm welcome to our esteemed keynote speaker, Professor Shailja Mathur.
With these words, we would like to invite Professor Shailja Mathur on to the stage. It's already there in the video. It should
It's
play.
it's in the slides.
It should play. In any case, you can just
बताइए
you can just check. वीडियोस एक बार प्ले करके देख लेगा. एक बार वीडियो चेक कर लीजिए. It will be connected to YouTube, right?
Yeah. You go to YouTube.
Fine, I think it should work. Yeah, click.
Skip करना पड़ेगा ना क्योंकि YouTube से डायरेक्टली आ रहा है.
थोड़ी देर बाद वो इसकी पिन ऑफ ऑप्शन आएगा इसकी तो फर्स्ट क्लास स्टार्ट कर देते हैं.
हाँ.
नहीं, इससे नहीं होगा. इससे भी होगा ना?
नहीं सर
इससे नहीं होगा।
लैपटॉप से होगा ना?
एक पानी का बोतल लेके आना,
और
एक वाटर बॉटल।
साड़ी में तो कहाँ लगाऊंगी रे? वेट। नहीं, इसको होल्ड करती, होल्ड करना पड़ेगा। ठीक है। Good afternoon. आवाज आ रही है? Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. It is my extreme pleasure and privilege to be here. This is actually a full circle moment that I have been able to bring the research that I have done on Indians in America to you all, and I hope that I will be able to inspire some of you to collaborate and some of you to duplicate this research because all of us need it. And with that, I want to begin by thanking Professor Rizvi. Thank you for extremely diligent arrangements in such short notice. I appreciate your invitation. And I would also like to acknowledge Dr. Arup Acharji, Professor Jetli, Professor Neetu Mishra, Neelam Yadav, Dr. Shifali Nandan, all of you for getting this room full of people who really want to hear. And I hope that I will leave you with some good, inspirational projects that I can come back one day to acknowledge, and we can perhaps work together. With that, I wanted to talk about Rutgers University because I think you all have heard about Rutgers University, but perhaps many of you do not know Rutgers Cooperative Extension. Is there anybody here in the audience that has heard about cooperative extension? Okay, so we are the best kept secret of Rutgers University. What we are is, if you consider a large university to be like a tree, Rutgers University is that tree. You are part of a university that's 185 years old. Rutgers University is 255 years old. And cooperative extension is actually the outreach arm of Rutgers University. So what we do with these three departments of agriculture and natural resources, the 4-H youth development, and the family and community health sciences, is that we serve the community where we stand. So our job is to be able to take the research that happens in our university to the people that live in the state. And all 50 states in the United States have a cooperative extension. So that's the homework for the students here. Perhaps you can go back and Google cooperative extension and look at all the work that is being done by cooperative extension in the United States. As a faculty of Rutgers University, I'm required to share with you all that our funding is by federal funds and state funds. So I happen to be a state employee, and Rutgers University is an equal opportunity employer, and we service everybody we are prohibited of any kind of discrimination by federal law. This is my disclosure as a presenter here today. I have no financial relationships to disclose. I have no non-financial disclosures. All the views that I express here are my own, and the educational materials that I'm going to present to you are actually evidence-based and unbiased. Most of the work that you will hear about today has been funded by grants from the New Jersey Department of Health and the National Institute of Health. We are required at Rutgers, when we work with human subjects, to get IRBs, which is the Institutional Review Board. So all these projects that you're going to hear about have received that approval. So although this morning has been very enlightened with a lot of talk about diabetes, but I wanted to start my talk with an icebreaker for everybody here, because some of what you see in the two slides has already been shared by Professor Rizvi and Professor Srivastav here. So what I want you all to do is, I want those people that have grandparents that have diabetes, stand up for me. Anybody, any students, faculty, staff, if your parents have diabetes, I want you to stand up. Only the people whose parents, grandparents have diabetes, stand up. Anybody whose siblings, brothers, sisters have diabetes, stand up. Don't sit down, those that are standing up. Those that have brothers or sisters that have diabetes, stand up for me, please. Okay, those of you who know anybody who has diabetes, stand up for me. Look around you. Turn around and look. The whole hall is standing up. This is the state of diabetes for us in India, in America for Indians as well. So I often do this activity to make people realize how important it is for us to address this disease. Everybody please have a seat. Thank you. I also wanted you to stand up because you've been sitting for a long time. So anytime you want to stand up and walk around or get some water, please do so. Dr. Rizvi has given me a very hard task of completing my talk in 40 minutes. This is 3 decades of my work, so work of my life, but I will try my best. So you heard about type 2 diabetes. I also wanted to give a very short overview of what diabetes is, because it comes in many forms. So you see that type 1, we don't hear about it very often, but that's also a kind of diabetes which is very low in numbers, 5 to 10%, but those are the people that only can live with insulin injections. It is not a metabolic disease, it is actually an autoimmune disease. So that's a very big difference in the management of that disease with type 2 diabetes. Most of what we see is type 2 diabetes, which is almost 95% of cases. I wanted to address gestational diabetes because I feel that it does not get the attention that it deserves. If you know anybody who has gestational diabetes after today, I want you to be their support. I want them to remember that they have a very small window where they can fight getting full-drawn diabetes. So after the baby is born, most women who have gestational diabetes, within the 5 years before the baby's 5th birthday, they end up with full-blown diabetes. Unfortunately, the doctors don't talk about it as much as they should. And when a woman goes home with a young baby, her mind's on the baby and not her gestational diabetes. But that's the time when her gynecologist, her doctors, and everybody else should work together that this woman gets the care that she does not end up with diabetes. And then the last one I wanted to mention, many of you may have heard that COVID caused many people to end up with diabetes. So when your body goes through a lot of stress of any kind, it could end up with diabetes. Certain medications, like many medications actually have a small print side effect that would say that you could end up with getting diabetes. So that's another kind of diabetes that you will see a lot, but it has not been addressed. This was actually talked about today, but I wanted to mention this because look at all the major organs on the picture. Your eyes, your brain, your teeth, your heart, your kidneys, your nerves, everything is affected by this disease, right? So it is a disease of your blood vessels. Your micro blood vessels, which is the ones in your kidneys and your eyes, as well as the big ones, the macros, they all get affected, right? And it is a progressive disease. What you see listed on the left are the risk factors. So one of the top risk factors is if you have prediabetes. And India leads the population in the onset of prediabetes. It seems like every second person in India, if you don't have diabetes, you have prediabetes. So that's the small critical window which needs to be addressed. And I'm going to give you some ideas from the work that I've done. Perhaps you can do some of that work here and get some great results. Another important thing is, look at this, which you heard already this morning. As Asian Indians, we are predisposed to diabetes. So just being an Indian makes us highly likely that we will get diabetes during our lifespan. So those are things to remember, that if you are going to check on all these and you get a score of 5, this is an eligibility tool that we use from the American Diabetes Association to see if you are at higher risk. So if you get a score of 5, then you are eligible for a prediabetes program. Why is it a concern in India? I think after this morning, as you leave, I hope if there's one thing you're going to remember is that you're going to do something about it for the people around you, because everybody stood up and you know somebody with diabetes. So look at where India stands. These are numbers from 2021, 74.2 million. I'm sure that number is over 100 million now, if we look at the current estimates. And if you look at the map, most of the states have an onset of more than 10%. And don't forget, there are a lot of people that are undiagnosed. So these are numbers for diagnosed diabetes. How many of us go to the doctor? We don't, right? So many of these are undiagnosed. And unfortunately, if you look at the projections for 2045, India is doing amazingly well, sadly enough, still holding the second spot very strongly. Today, I'm very honored to be speaking in front of such a diverse audience with students and faculty and deans and everybody here from Allahabad University. What I serve in New Jersey is actually South Asians. A pointer. Thank you. We all know that India is a very diverse state. And from all these diverse states, people are moving to America a lot, right? Now, if you look at the cultural nuances, people from different states are eating differently. They're following different religions. They're speaking different languages, right? And if you look at this number, a very large influx of Indians is happening in the United States. So when I looked at data from 2010 to 2017, we had a 40% increase. And I live in a state on the eastern border of the United States, which is densely populated with Indians. So I get the privilege of working with a lot of Indians. And if you look, when I put this South Asians here, because we try to do a broader outreach, reaching people from Pakistan, Nepal, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, and all the states in India, and we collectively call them South Asians. What I've seen in my 3 decades of work is what Dr. Rizvi mentioned, the lean diabetes, right? We may not have that much weight to lose, but we yet get diabetes. That's the thrifty gene hypothesis. We develop type 2 at a younger age. This was the reason that I've been working with adults for the last 10 years, and I was asked by CDC last year to do something with the youth. So I just kicked off a program for youth, a pediatric population, to start working on prediabetes. And it's very complex because our dietary and acculturation factors are so complex, right? So today I'm going to talk about my story, why I work in this field, why I want to transform health for Indians, and I'm going to leave you hopefully with a number of key lessons. Your choice which one you're going to take, but I hope you take home some good messages that you can follow. So thank you for that wonderful introduction. My journey started with Banaras Hindu University, and I moved to the United States in 1993. I have spent most of my life in the Eastern Corridor, right here, but I did fly into Austin, Texas. And then I moved to Massachusetts, New Jersey, and Connecticut, which is all smaller states on the eastern coast. In Connecticut, I got another degree, and then I took a little pause to enjoy motherhood. And during that phase, I realized I was in a town in Massachusetts, which is a very white community, and 30 years ago, I did not find a registered dietitian who could talk to me about what I need to do with gestational diabetes. That journey started right there, that this is a gap that needs to be filled. When my younger son was a month old, we moved to New Jersey, and right after that, I started my journey with Rutgers, and I've stayed there for 23 years. Rutgers has been an academic institution who has provided me lots of opportunities to work with all kinds of populations. But of course, my heart and my passion was to work with the Indian population. So here's my journey from 2001 all the way to now. I wanted to mention the community academic partnerships, which I think now you have a full house of faculty. So you should work with community partners and organizations to go and work in the grassroots levels with the community. I started my work with people who were on food stamps, which was underserved and under-resourced, so the poor population of New Jersey. And I saw that there was a lot of chronic disease in these Hispanic, which is Spanish-speaking population, and African American. And so since I did not speak Spanish, I had to hire a lot of Spanish-speaking staff. And we worked with peer leaders to bring nutrition education. But then I collaborated with the South Asian Total SATI, which is the South Asian Total Health Initiative, which was an initiative from the Rutgers Medical School. Rutgers University actually owns half of New Jersey. So Rutgers Medical School is part of our university. So I worked with them, and we worked on a 5-year stroke project where a registered dietitian and a nurse spoke to the Indian population to see what we could do to educate them, to empower them. When I worked on this grant for 5 years, all my participants had hypertension, diabetes, or pre-diabetes. That led me to go to Atlanta. I got trained as a lifestyle coach from CDC, and I wanted to work with the management of type 2 diabetes. But the work with type 2 diabetes, the first thing I started was with gestational women with gestational diabetes. That was a project that I failed in. I realized that the mother is not interested in any kind of education but her baby. So I had to quickly move on to a different population. And then I started to work with adults on living with diabetes, and I allowed people that had actually served as caregivers of these people living with diabetes. During that period, I realized in those few years that if I work with people living with pre-diabetes, the impact would be rather large. I would be able to stop at least a few of them to ever get diabetes in their lifetime. So with that goal in mind, the birth of Empower to Prevent happened. And I'm going to talk about all these programs. And last year, I started to work with cardiac health because we were working with a cardiologist who shared that if I see the Indians in the hospital with a heart attack, I look at their reports and I find that they were living with prediabetes and diabetes for at least 10 years, and they were not talking about it and they were not treating it. That's when we started to work with Asian Indian cardiac health. We call that Project CHAI. And last year, I started to work with the families, so youth, because we need to change the way we live, the way we pray, and the way we eat to make any difference in this space. So now I'm going to talk about, first I'll talk about the South Asian diabetes awareness, the Empower to Prevent, which is for prediabetes, and then the cardiac health among Asian Indians, which is the CHAI study. And I think the most interesting part would be the key lessons that we are going to discuss at the end. I invite you for questions after the slides, and I hope that there will be time for me to address some of them. So for the South Asian Diabetes Awareness Program, my goal was to increase health literacy. What I found that the population who goes to America are very highly educated, mostly computer engineers, right? But their health literacy is very low. And just to address the circadian rhythm that Professor Rizvi talked about, most of these people are working with Indian teams and working all night. And that's also a driver to their diabetes. Oftentimes, I have to tell my participants, you need to find another job. This is not doing you any good. Do you want to live or do you want to die working? This is your choice. And that's a hard choice, but that's something that needs to happen. You see, I just want to acknowledge my team here. Professor Dr. Datta has been very instrumental in the creation of this whole project. and Dr. Nurgle Fitzgerald. All you see in the pictures below are my peer leaders. This is a peer leader model where I have recruited these women and men of different ages from different regions of India. So I had, my peer leaders spoke 7 languages, and they had connections in gurdwaras, temples, and mosques. So those are where the communities were collecting, and that's where I wanted to go in. And it was through them that I was able to go into those. When I first started working on this project, there was Stanford University has created a curriculum that's a 6-week self-management curriculum. All the peer leaders were trained in that curriculum. And then our lead team, Dr. Fitzgerald, Dr. Datta, and myself, we created a curriculum for them, which was just tailored for the South Asians. What we found out that my participants were not interested or engaged in the first half of the DSMP. They only wanted to hear about what was relevant to them. That led us, after 7 iterations, so 7 sessions of 10 weeks each, where we were collecting pre-HbA1c, post-HbA1c, and giving them 6 weeks of lesson. We had to, due to COVID, move it to an online, and we started to work just independently with that 1 hour of curriculum for the Indian population. So this became, instead of DSMP, it became the SADA program. And you can see that we trained and piloted 7 sessions, and this work still continues because I still run my support group every month, where anybody who participated in these touch upon what we did. And what was really important was that we talked about what happens to glucose or food when it goes. How many of you have heard, I have diabetes. साहब हमने तो शुगर एकदम बंद कर दी है. अब ना डॉक्टर के पास जाने की ज़रूरत है और ना दवा खाने की ज़रूरत है. Anybody heard that statement? Come on, raise your hand, be honest. I hear it all the time. Right? Then how many of you have heard, मैडम वो शुगर नंबर नॉर्मल आ गया था, दवा छोड़ दिया हमने. In our families, these are our brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, grandfathers, everybody. We Indians have an aversion to medication. Sometimes we need them. We need that help, right? We are very blessed with a lot of complementary and alternative medicines. जामुन खा लेंगे, नीम पी लेंगे, कुछ भी कर लेंगे पर दवा नहीं खाएंगे हम. और स्टैटिन किसी ने दे दिया तो वो तो जहर है. उससे तो पता नहीं क्या क्या और हो जाता है. Right? Research has always 2 coins. Right? Now there is a body of cardiologists that are working on Asian Indians and saying, just because we have a lot of diabetes, we also have a lot of heart disease. And we need to be on statins earlier than the other populations. One of the messages that I give my participants is, if you have diabetes, go find a cardiologist, because eventually you will end up in the office of a cardiologist. Have one so that you can take care of yourself, right? So in this 6 week, we taught them 3 tools. Journaling, so we taught them to journal how they were feeling, track their food, track their exercise, and problem solving. We also taught them what's on their plate, right? We taught them a tool that's called carb counting. And I want to give a shout out to one of my colleagues who has written a book that was recently released on carb counting, only for Asian Indians. So you have all your food in that book. And I will share that with the university so you can have it available for the people here. We talked about lifestyle, the complications. Kitna sara stigma, right? We don't want to tell anybody that we live with diabetes. That's a problem of our community. That's something we addressed. And we said, if you do not tell the person that is living, kya hota hai? Like you heard, Holi mein kitni gujia khain? Sabke ghar mein gujia bani. Fasting and feasting is part of our culture. We need to address our home environment, our food environment. Do we really need to make that many gujias? Do we really need to have at least 5 desserts in our weddings and our किसी को बुलाया एक ही मिठाई बनाई तो पता नहीं क्या कहेंगे लोग तो कम से कम 3 तो होनी चाहिए, right? That's how we think. That's ingrained in our culture. So the change is you. It needs to come from within you because you were all standing up. So we all have a problem that we need to address, right? And the last lesson that we did was monitoring and treating diabetes. So Professor Rizvi actually talked about the biochemistry of insulin, but I have a little video that we created for this program, and if it plays, then I will share that with you.
कौन है ये रिज्यूमे लेकर आया है इतने सारे?
स्किप कर देते, साउंड पूरा आएगा. Sound नहीं आ रहा.
In this painting by David Goodsell, you are looking at the boundary of the cell. The blue and purple bits are the inside of the cell, and the brown part is the outside of the cell. The green cell membrane separates the outside from the inside. The focus in this video is to understand how glucose molecules, shown as white specks, enter into the cells. A key player in this process is the hormone called insulin, shown as the yellow blob on the outside of the cell. When it binds to its specific receptor, the insulin receptor, it triggers a number of changes within the cell, and a series of signaling steps happen that communicate the insulin binding outside of the cell to a number of proteins that tell vesicles that are sitting inside the cell to move outwards. The vesicles contain specific transporters called glucose transporters, and it is through these glucose transporters the glucose will enter the cell. Once inside the cell, the glucose is either used up for energy or growth, or stored in the form of glycogen, shown as these purple branched structures. When there is an excess of glucose outside the cell, insulin is produced. The insulin binds to the insulin receptor on the membrane of the cell and begins a series of signaling steps membrane within the cell called vesicles that have the glucose transporters in them to move out to the cell surface so that glucose from outside can enter the cell. Since insulin is critical for beginning the process of glucose uptake, if insulin is missing, the entire process of glucose uptake stops. The glucose remains outside the cell, and the cells are unable to utilize it. This is in fact what happens in type 1 diabetes, and the only way to treat it is to provide insulin by injection. Insulin signaling is a process involving many proteins that talk to each other inside the cell. If any of these proteins are either missing or not functioning properly, the signal that tells the glucose transporter to come up to the cell surface is blocked. The net result is the cell is unable to utilize glucose and can lead to type 2 diabetes or insulin-independent diabetes. This name collectively describes all conditions where insulin signaling may be affected. It is often difficult to specifically diagnose the cause of type 2 diabetes, so the treatment focuses more on managing the overall blood glucose levels within a narrow range than identifying the actual cause of the condition. To learn more about insulin and diabetes in molecular detail, visit PDE 101.
So, this video and 7 others are part of that 6-week curriculum, and what I'm going to show you now
more than 5 lakh
actually
people create
is
massive success that they
another video that we created because people needed to understand why they are given all these medications, and you will see what happens.
Carbohydrates, proteins, fats, along with fiber, minerals, and other nutrients. In this video, we will focus on carbohydrates such as starches and sugars in our foods to understand how they are related to the rise and fall of blood glucose levels. Let's say you eat an apple. Starches and sugars present in the apple are digested or broken down into simple sugars such as glucose, which is then absorbed from the intestine and enters the bloodstream. A high blood glucose level signals the pancreas to secrete insulin into the blood. Muscle, fat, and other cells in the body require insulin for taking in glucose from the blood to provide energy for movement, cellular functions, and growth. Any excess glucose is stored in cells as glycogen and used later. Another signal that prepares our body to produce insulin comes from intestines that are full of food. This signal is delivered to the pancreas via a protein hormone called GLP-1. The signal itself is naturally regulated, meaning after a few minutes of action, GLP-1 is destroyed by an enzyme called DPP-4. This ensures that the pancreas does not overproduce insulin. Cells in our brain require a steady blood glucose level to function normally. To ensure normal brain function, our body stores glucose in the form of glycogen. Liver has the largest store of glycogen in our body. During times of fasting, a hormone called glucagon directs conversion of stored glycogen into glucose to maintain the blood glucose levels. During extreme starvation, the liver is also capable of converting protein and lipid building blocks into glucose. Another organ that plays an important role in managing blood glucose levels is the kidney. Its normal function is to filter out waste materials from our blood and flush it out as urine. During this process, glucose in the blood is also filtered out. Our body has a mechanism to reabsorb this glucose by a special glucose transporter protein. This ensures that there is no wastage. A quick finger stick test can be used to measure the blood glucose levels at any given time. Blood glucose levels below 70 milligrams per deciliter is considered too low and should be addressed immediately, while levels higher than 200 milligrams per deciliter, about 2 hours after a meal, is considered too high. Prolonged periods of high blood glucose levels can cause glucose to stick to proteins in the blood. The amount of sugar bound to hemoglobin provides an assessment of the average level of blood glucose over an extended period of time. This measure is called hemoglobin A1C or HbA1c. High numbers indicate inadequate management of blood glucose levels. So one of the goals in diabetes treatment is to reduce the HbA1c numbers. Diabetes is either caused by the absence of insulin inadequate levels or improperly functioning insulin. The main symptom seen in diabetes is high blood glucose levels. In order to maintain the blood glucose levels within a narrow range, individuals living with diabetes can change their diet and lifestyle. Changing diet means the amount of carbohydrates that enter the bloodstream is limited. Changing lifestyle or adding exercise can help use more of the glucose from the blood. If no insulin is produced by the body, such as in type 1 diabetes, the individual has to take insulin injections. However, if insulin is produced in the body, a number of different approaches can be used to manage blood glucose levels. Usually, the first medication given to an individual diagnosed with diabetes is a biguanide called metformin. Although the mechanism of action of this medication is not fully understood, it is known to decrease the amount of glucose released from the liver. Some reports suggest that it increases the efficiency of glucose uptake by fat and muscle cells by increasing insulin sensitivity. Both activities reduce blood glucose levels. Other approaches to reduce addition of glucose to the bloodstream include blocking the digestion of carbohydrates by a class of medications called alpha-glucosidase inhibitors. So the undigested sugars are removed in the bowels. Another approach is blocking reabsorption of glucose from the kidney by a class of medications called sodium glucose transporter 2 or SGLT2 inhibitors. These medications help flush out excess glucose in the urine. Several classes of medications increase insulin secretion. For example, sulfonylureas and meglitinides act on the pancreas to increase insulin secretion, whereas thiazolidinediones or TZDs increase insulin sensitivity of cells and the efficiency of glucose uptake by them. The class of medications called gliptins are DPP4 inhibitors that block the function of the regulator DPP4, thereby prolonging the life of the GLP-1 hormone, which in turn signals increase in insulin production. Synthetic GLP-1 analogs are stable molecules that mimic the function of the GLP-1 hormone. They promote satiety and can lead to weight loss. Some of these medications can be taken just once a week, making them user-friendly. Diabetes is a progressive metabolic disorder. The first medication prescribed after diagnosis is commonly metformin. Over time, one or more other classes of medications may be added to the treatment plan for better management of blood glucose levels. In really advanced stages, the pancreas may stop making insulin altogether. At this stage, insulin injections may be necessary for managing blood glucose levels. To learn more about diabetes and its various treatment approaches in molecular detail, visit PDB 101.
Everybody still awake? If you want to stand up, please do so. I hope many of you recognize some of the medications that we talked about. And the purpose was not to give you a class in biochemistry, but this is what we did with our patients. Once they understood what the medication was doing, they were equipped to ask questions from their doctors. What time to take the medication? I need to do this with an empty stomach, or I need to do this with a full meal. Those questions nobody answers. They send you home with these medications, then they add more medications, and life with diabetes goes on. So this was something that was very much appreciated by our participants, and I hope that you learned something and you can go back and ask your doctor for more information. Basically, this is a call to action that small lifestyle changes is what helped everybody. And what I really wanted to say to you all is invite open conversations. Don't hide this disease. It is a disease, it's not going to go away. If you manage it well, you can still live a very long and healthy life. And that's what you need to remember. You need to leverage community-based resources and peer support. I have an entire community of peer leaders that go into their temples, their mosques, their gurudwaras, they table for me, they answer questions, they bring questions to registered dietitians. We are always there to help them. So I invite you all to think about creative ways to use this work in your own communities. And then I'm going to talk about New Jersey Empowered to Prevent. Very quickly, this was also funded through a grant. You see a picture of our graduation. This is a completely online program that is a year long, and we only see our participant once a year, once they graduate. So after they have stayed with us for a whole year, we invite them. This is a program that is created by CDC. It was based on research that was done in a large longitudinal study with 3,000 participants, and there were 3 arms to that study. One that was on metformin, one that had been given lifestyle changes, and one that was just given advice on what to do, like normally what your doctor says. आपकी शुगर थोड़ी सी बढ़ी हुई है, बॉर्डर पे है, थोड़ा ध्यान से खाइए, एक्सरसाइज करिए, और आप घर आ जाते हैं, राइट? 2 साल बाद आप डॉक्टर के पास जाते हैं, अब तो आपको डायबिटीज़ हो गया, ये आपकी दवा है, go home, right? That's the progression, exact progression that also happens in America. So Cooperative Extension took upon ourselves that we are going to go into the communities to do this work. So there are 22 other states along with my state where we are doing this work. It is a rather long program, and I'm happy to collaborate if I can inspire anybody here. I'm a lifestyle coach. I'm also a master trainer. So I train these lifestyle coaches. So I have trained so far 12 lifestyle coaches that are running their own cohorts. At Rutgers University, we run 2 cohorts every year. And when I go back in April, I'm doing another training with 7 people who are going to be trained as lifestyle coach. Actually, one of them is a student of your university. And she wanted to become a lifestyle coach. And so she has been following me all these years, that whenever you offer that training, please include me. So she's one of the participants that will be trained to do this. Now what we have used a mixed method cohort study. So we collect quantitative data. So every week we weigh our participants. It's all self-reported on Qualtrics. And they also report our physical activity minutes. So the minimum minutes they need to do is 150 minutes per week. So even if they take baby step, by the end of the year, we get them to a very nice place. And I'm also collecting some qualitative data where I want to see the attitude and behavior changes that happens, because in my short programs of 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and 10 weeks, it is very difficult to measure behavior change. But when we have something that's ongoing for 12 months, I can actually go back with my pre and post data to see what actually happened with their behavior. So this is some of the results that we have. I wanted to share that we have a very mixed race and ethnicity group. Like I said, I live in New Jersey. This mirrors the community. We have a lot of South Asians, primarily Indians in my study. We tried to actually recruit males because we wanted a mixed cohort. So I would inspire the males in the room that become part of research studies. It was very hard to get males into these studies. You can see that the average age was about 55 in most of our cohorts. But sadly, if you note, our youngest participant was 22 years old, living with prediabetes, and our oldest was 78. This is data from 4 cohorts. Our 5th just ended, the analysis is ongoing. Our 6th and 7th data is ongoing right now, and we're going to start our 8th cohort in May. So if you look at this second slide with the outcomes, we have met 1, 2, and 3, about 65% in that range. Cohort 3 showed very poor results for 2 reasons. The world suddenly opened up, and people never had time for exercising and coming to class. So we had to quickly change things, and by the time we got our cohort 4, we were back to 70% of meeting our outcomes. We have been recognized by CDC as an institution that delivers the NJEP or the NDPP, which is known as the National Diabetes Prevention Program, and we need to meet these outcomes in order to stay organized. So you will find us on the CDC website. And then with the quantitative outcomes, we report to CDC every 6 months, the data that we collect every week. And you will see that most of our participants in cohort 1 lost 5% of their body weight, which is one of the goals. Cohort 2 lost over 5%. Cohort 3 was our the world opened up, and then back to 4.3. If you look at the physical activity minutes, these are the average physical activity minutes. So remember these numbers. When you go back, you should give yourself a goal of physical activity minutes. One thing on this slide I do want to very proudly mention, because I do want to give a shout out to my team. I have been very blessed with many passionate team members, because of which our retention rate is much higher than anybody in the entire United States. The national average is 32%, and we sit at 88%. Even cooperative extension states, 22 of other states that are doing, they also sit at 45%. So we put in a lot of effort, and part of the reason is I have many registered dietitians and personal trainers on my team that are very passionate about meeting those outcomes from CDC. So because I was presenting in India, I decided to look at the data, and I pulled out my Indian demographics. And I found some very sad outcomes. So if you look, the total cohort for these 4 is 53. 19 of them were Indians, right? So I had almost 40% of my participants were Indian. That's because we do have a lot of pre-diabetes, right? However, look at the weight loss. Cohort 1 was 3.4. They did not lose that much weight. Couple reasons. They were very comfortable with their weight. Number 2, some of them did not have the weight to lose. So what I want you to do is, maybe I want everybody to stand up. Hold your right hand up. Stand up, and I want you to put your hand on your belly button. This is your own. You don't have to share with anybody. Bring your right hand to your belly button, and I want you to take a moment to decide for yourself whether you have any extra fat there. Most of us do, right? And we have excuses for that. No more excuses after today. You need to address this fat. One of the reasons that we do, have a seat please, thank you. This is our enemy. We have a lot more fat, which is known as truncal obesity, and that needs to be reduced. Whether young or old, whether your reason is that you're eating too much, sitting too much, not exercising, whatever it is, choose what you need to do about it. This is for you. You don't have to share it with the person sitting next to you, but this is a lesson for you, okay? My regular participants lost 9 pounds in that 1 year that they stayed with me. My Indian participants, sad, right? They didn't care. I call them every week. This is still where they stand. Look at the average weekly minutes. South Asians, 206. नाक रगड़ दी लेकिन वॉकिंग के अलावा कुछ नहीं करेंगे वो. Right? So you have to do other things other than just walking. साहब हम टहलने जाते हैं पर आराम से टहलते हैं, फ़ोन पे बात करते रहते हैं, तो कितना क्या कर लेते हैं आप उस टहलने में, right? So we needed to change that. The 3 new cohorts have much better data. Look at how most of the participants, 47% met this, but with Indians, much harder time. Together we can make that better, right? I'm not sure if you all know, but the BMI cutoff for Indians is much lower than all other ethnicities, right? Anybody here? Professors, students, what is the BMI cutoff? बोलिए, पीछे से बोलिए, जोर से बोलिए. माइक आ रहा है आपके पास. कितना समय है मेरे पास?
मैम बॉडी मास इंडेक्स.
हाँ, कितना है इंडियंस का? ओवरवेट कितने नंबर पे है?
मैम अबव 25.
25 is not the right answer. Anybody else? 20.
Ma'am, it's 18 to 23.
Good job. Give a round of applause. That's the right answer. जिन्होंने पहला आंसर दिया था उनका आंसर करेक्ट था, पर इंडियंस के लिए करेक्ट नहीं था. So for all other ethnicities, the BMI number is 25. For us, because of our love fat here, they have changed that. So at 23, which is at a much lower weight, we are considered overweight. And that's why our diabetes happens at a much lower weight and a much younger age. So what that calls for is nuanced and very aggressive programs like this to focus on Indians where they don't move from pre-diabetes to diabetes, right? I hope this is all food for thought for all the people here. I am going to play this. इसके बाद
The most important thing was that it has to be a consistent change in your life, and to make like that concerted effort that every single day you're going to stick to the program, you're going to do the things that you need to do. So it's not like a one-time thing. You learned it and now you're good. You have to, keep up with it, and also to be kind to myself. So if I have a slip up, if I don't have a good day, if I, didn't stick to my plan, it's okay.
The most important thing I learned is that it's okay to take small steps. What I enjoyed most about this program, it provided a safe space. I realized I was not the only one going through this situation.
The most important thing I learned was the art of decluttering. I find that after decluttering, I feel very good about it. I didn't realize how much stress it would cause in your life. And that is the one main point that I have learned out of this program.
So the most important thing I learned about, there are two things. First is the diet, the way they explain the plate. So don't leave anything out of the plate, but make sure you have adequate amounts of the proteins and carbohydrates and the fat in it. And the second one is the small changes in your daily lifestyles. That's what.
Now I'm being very conscious of like the plating. The plating is one of those things where it's like 50% of your plate should be this. So that visual is actually really helpful when I'm planning my meals.
That booklet that they handed us, not only did I enjoy it, it was a wealth of information, but it is literally next to my Bible. The different recipes, things that I had in my cabinets, in my refrigerator, that I was able to make healthy, nutritional meals from, spoke volumes to me. And I realized some of the things, it wasn't just I had to go cold turkey and cut everything out, but portion control was very, very critical. And not sitting at my desk all the time, just getting up, taking small steps, instead of using the elevator, taking the staircase. So it was those kind of tips that really helped me out tremendously.
First of all, with regard to nutrition, I envision my plate before eating. And in that way, I am able to use portion control and keep to my diet. And then also physical activity. I didn't realize how much physical activity played in the part of diabetes. And the fact that how it acts as the gatekeeper for insulin. It opens the cells and allows the insulin to enter. And also it helps you maintain a healthy weight and it makes you feel better.
Consciously looking at my plate every time I eat, and I have eliminated all the refined carbs from my diet. I make conscious effort of walking if I'm not able to exercise. Also, this has helped me with my lifestyle changes, and that has affected my entire family actually. So it was not just my change for me personally, but an overall holistic change for my entire family.
So from all you heard, this inspired me to start a South Asian cohort. So in the fall of 2025, it's going to be a completely Indian cohort that's going to go through this one-year program. And for this CHAI study, I just want to mention, this is a study where we were measuring the truncal obesity in the first generation Indians that have moved to America. You see in the picture, that's our staff from the Rutgers School of Nursing. And we are collecting lipid profiles, HbA1c, BMIs, and we have a repertoire of questionnaires that they were filling for us. We were collecting data whether acculturation was causing the stress leading to diabetes and heart disease. And we were also collecting salivary samples for the measurement of cortisol, which is your measurement for stress. So they were going home with these samples and coming back to us, and we were checking whether they really had high cortisol, and that was driving them to move faster to diabetes. Again, in this, we did most of the first phase of the study. The pilot was done in a temple. And right now, we are in the second phase of the study. The first phase, we actually recruited 88 participants, and we had complete set of data for 77 participants. You can see that we wanted to see, do the people that have truncal obesities, do they hang out together? What are their social networks? Who are they listening to? Who will they listen to? So while we collected the biomarkers, we also collected the social connectedness, and we did what is called in India as focus groups. We did many sessions of brainstorming where we asked these participants, because what they reported to us in the surveys was that they're very happy in America, they have no stress. What we saw in their salivary samples was very different than what they came and talked to us. They said they're so stressed. They want to buy these big cars, these big homes. घर से लोगों को बुलाना है, उन्हें 6 महीना रखना है, और हमें तो काम पे निकलना है. So they were in a very extreme state of stress in their lives, which came out through these biomarkers. So what we found out was, they said, whatever education you do, I want you to do it as partners. So I want you to involve my partner. So the second phase of study is called a dyad study, and we are going to actually kick it off right after I get back. So we have 44 couples, and we are doing an arm in a Catholic church in one part of New Jersey, and then we're doing it in a mixed cohort in Central Jersey. I wanted to share this with you. This is the results of our first phase, and I want you to look at the numbers. All the numbers are in red. And that makes me very sad, because if I collect these biomarkers here in this room, it would still look something like that. Right? Waist circumference, very high, we already checked that. HbA1c, an average of 6.2, which means everybody of that 77 people had that. The cholesterol was high, the HDL was low, the LDL was high, triglycerides were extremely high. Look at that number, 470. So it was very disheartening to collect this data, and that's when we created the intervention. Very educated group, more than half had a bachelor's degree. 1/3 had a master's degree. We had a few PhD students. I had a few physicians in this group. And, but the numbers did not look good. So what we're doing now, we're doing a bundled approach where we are creating 12 lessons, and we are going to be working and creating a larger grant, which will be an NIH grant to address this for a 5-year syndemic intervention. And that's all the peer leaders. And now the fun part. How does your plate look like? The left or the right? How many people are the right? Come on, be honest. खूब सारा चावल खाते हैं हम. Right? If I measure it, sometimes 3 cups of rice on our plate. Right? Everything else is a side. It's the rice that takes the king's spot. That's 105, so that's the problem, our diet. From what you heard from the video, small changes matters. Let's see what you can take away from these. So what I want to leave you with is you need to take charge of your health. Diabetes is a self-management disease. You need to be responsible for that. Initially, about 20 years ago, when I started to do these programming, the first group of participants that I had a woman in my class in the first class. I asked her why she was here, and she said, my husband has diabetes. He's retired, but I take care of him, so I'm here to learn how I can better take care of him. I said, okay, fantastic. So then she said, he's going to come to pick me up after the class. So I said, you don't go without my talking to your husband. I need to talk to him. That couple, older couple, in these 20 years is my biggest fan. He not only spoke to me, he stayed through the 6 weeks, and every time I'll run a session, they have people that they reference to this program. So he will call me and he will say, what a great work for the community. We need more of these programming. So I want everybody here to know diabetes is a very burdensome disease. When a woman has it, it becomes harder. So husbands and wives, take care of each other, because that's a disease where you need a lot of support. It is a disease that begins when you wake up and doesn't end when you sleep. 24/7, these people are making thousands of decisions. Abhi sona hai, khana hai, abhi kya khaun. It's very hard. 5 years ago, the American Diabetes Association also included depression as a part of the disease. So many people that are living with diabetes often are living with depression. It is a depressing disease because sometimes no matter what you do, you still don't get the numbers you want, right? So very important to remember the support. For the diet, small portions, high fiber. I'm just so impressed with the use of millets. I have introduced millets in America to all other ethnicities, but as Indians, we eat a lot of millets. That's great, but there's one problem. Millets still have carbohydrates. So it's not like गेहूं और चावल छोड़ दिया तो खूब सारा खा सकते हैं रागी. Portion control is still an issue with that, right? But it does have a lot of fiber, and you can eat that. Unhealthy fats. Those are some things that you can address. क्या है नेत्राम के कचौड़ी जलेबी, right? देशी घी में. Your campus stands very close to all these stores, right? Just remember, I am not telling you today to stop eating ghee, but portion control is where I want you to address it. For exercise, I want to leave you with knowing that just walking is not going to cut it. You need to do some other exercises where you work on your balance. Yoga is wonderful, flexibility, strengthening, muscle building, biking, whatever you can do. Give yourself, make a plan for yourself. Self-care is important. Nobody is living here without stress. In different stages of your life, you have different stresses. Make sure you have something in your pocket that helps you to cope with stress because you will need it. I'm very excited. I will be reading the book that Professor Rizvi has introduced today. Know that sleep is a very important part of the management of prediabetes and diabetes. No doctor is going to tell you, but people living with diabetes, Dr. Srivastav mentioned oxidative stress, which happens every day. Oxidative stress is when your cells are getting oxidated. When you sleep, that's your body restoring. So try to get as many hours of sleep as you can. For a person living with diabetes, a normal adult requires 7 to 8. I always tell my people living with diabetes, try to get 8 to 10. You need it. Take care of yourself. Do whatever you need to do, but your sleep is important. Have fun. Bring joy to your life. Very important part of diabetes management. Any hobby that you have, even for solving problems, you have a beautiful campus. I'm so impressed by the beauty of this campus. While you're working all day, take out those 10 minutes to walk, to do some kind of physical activity where you leave your desk. And then one, support and stigma is very, very important. I've already spoken about it. I hope that you will invite more open conversations regarding that. And don't be afraid to talk to your doctor about whatever you're suffering from. Go to the doctor. They are your friends. They will help you. You just need to ask. Go prepared because they have limited time. Make a list. This is what is needed. How can you help me? Or can you refer me somewhere? And then I showed you the video on medications. The medications have a process they work with in your body. You need to understand that when to take. Diabetes medications need to be taken at the same time. The drugs have a half-life. So if you take your metformin at 8 in the morning, you need your second dose at 8 in the evening. It only works for 12 hours. So if you're not taking it at 12, you are with no coverage, and then you have a big dinner, right? What happens? Blood sugar is very high, you'll wake up with very high blood sugar. You're going to be chasing your blood sugar all day because you did not have your medication on time, you did not eat your food on time, you did not look at what's on your plate. So very, very important to remember these things. If you can, include 2.5 hours a week of moderate physical activity. And you don't have to take out 2.5 hours. Start with 10 minutes. It's all cumulative. If you do 10, 10, 10 for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, khate to ho, right? Breakfast karoge, yaad rakho ki breakfast ke baad I'm going to walk or do some kind of exercise for 10 minutes. Lunch, 10 minutes. That brings you to 30 minutes on a weekday. If you do that for 5 days and not 7, you still get your minimum 150 minutes, right? If you have weight to lose it gradually. Focus on your truncal obesity, lose your weight gradually, because if you lose it too fast, it's going to come back, and it's going to come back with a vengeance. Don't do that. साहब 6 महीने में मेरी शादी है या किसी की शादी है तो मैंने खाना ही छोड़ दिया है. Don't do that. It doesn't work. Replace your refined carbs, मैदे की सारी चीज़ें. Replace them. I will not say कि बंद करो because nobody is going to listen to me. आज आई हैं ये USA से कुछ पढ़ बोल के चली गई. यहाँ कैसे कर सकते हैं, यहाँ नहीं हो सकता, right? Everybody offers you this samosa jalebi, but you can because you are your own advocate. One of the most important thing that I tell people is your intake of vegetables. I see in India, हम लोग बहुत सारे लोग वेजिटेरियन हैं, लेकिन सब्जी तो हम लोग एकदम अचार की तरह लेते हैं और अचार सब्जी की तरह लेते हैं. Why is it a side on our plate? It should be the main part of our plate, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Reduce the amount of saturated fat. Saturated fat is that comes from animal sources. So although I answered my question, but I would like to know how much cholesterol is there in cashew nuts. Anybody in the audience would like to answer that? Come on, don't be afraid. There will be wrong answers and right answers. Cashew nuts में कितना cholesterol है? Nobody wants to answer. वो कह रही है कोलेस्ट्रॉल नहीं है, इतने सारे लोग काजू खाते ही नहीं हैं. Everybody agrees with her answer. Are you all awake? Cashew nuts have no cholesterol. Cholesterol only comes from animal sources, right? But oftentimes when you tell Indians कि high cholesterol आया, उन्होंने सारे nuts खाने छोड़ दिए. The nuts have good fats. You can eat them. But I'm not saying कि फिर भर के खाने लगो. It does have fat, so it is very high in calories. So just remember that, but it has a good fat that's very protective to your heart. So yes, you can still eat your nuts. One thing that is very important to remember is work-site wellness. Like I said, find a way in your work day to include exercise, right? Because once you go home, you're very tired and you may not do it. Either you include it in your work day or you do it before your work day begins. And your food environment. In America, I have written many policies where I do not allow certain foods on my floor in my building. And so if those foods come to my building, I get a call. And I have to set up a one-on-one with that person and give them ideas on what they can bring it to the office. So that's working on the food environment at work. Don't bring jalebi samosa. Bring nice platter of vegetables, platter of cheese. You can bring some fresh fruits. Amrood is a really good fruit for anybody. High fiber, low sugar. Since we all have diabetes, let's work on this together. Sleep hygiene. I invite you all to read the book. Very important. And then stress management, I already talked about. This is the My Plate method that I talk about in my curriculum. This is the most important part of my If nothing else, I want you all to take this one goal. When you plate your food, see if you can put non-starchy vegetables for more than half. This is something that is a guideline for Americans from the United States Department of Agriculture. But it really works well for people living with prediabetes or diabetes. And then your starchy foods, which is your roti, paratha, naan, come here, very small portion. Your meat or any kind of protein, which is your dal, tofu, whatever, comes here. I often recommend that you take your fruit as a snack, not when you eat your food. And your milk can be taken with your fruit so that you are having a protein with your fruit, so your sugar doesn't spike. Another thing that's very important is sequencing while eating. So when you take your plate of food from tomorrow, maybe tonight, you need to think about what you're going to eat first. So either you start eating with your protein, which would be the bowl of dal, or you can start eating with your vegetables, right? And then as your food goes down, we saw that video, it helps with the sugar spikes. I wanted to give you some examples for non-starchy foods. Karela is on the top of my list. You can eat it every day. These are all the vegetables. The rule that I make for my participants is if you have to make half your plate vegetables, then make 2 vegetables. And then you take a small salad, because the salad is always a small place on our plate, right? Or you can make your entire meal a salad by adding protein and other things to your salad, right? Which is a very Western, very American concept, but I have tried it and it works. And the last thing here is whether you eat fresh vegetables, frozen or canned, they all count. On this slide, I just wanted to mention corn, green peas and potatoes do not count as vegetables. They count as your grain and starchy. So अगर आपकी प्लेट में ये नहीं अलाउड है कि आपने वो सब्जी की जगह खूब सारा मटर खा लिया या कॉर्न खा लिया या आलू बीन्स की सब्जी बनाई तो आलू ज़्यादा बीन्स कम, right? That doesn't count. And then pumpkin, kaddu is also, all winter squashes are very high in sugar. Sweet potato is a better choice than regular potato, but it still will spike your sugar. So watch your portions. One thing that I found with my participants was that they lacked protein if they were vegetarians. It was very hard to make sure that they get enough protein. About 20 to 25 grams per meal is what is required. So we helped them with soybean, like bari, Nutella. What they did, if you told them have more protein, they would increase their dal quantity. If you increase the dal quantity, you're not just increasing your protein, you're also increasing your carb. So that wasn't really doing the trick. So we needed clean protein. Tofu, seitan, sprouted beans. All your nuts and seeds have a good quantity of protein. You can add chia, flax, hemp, 3 teaspoons, has a lot of protein. Watermelon seeds, sunflower seeds. You can just have them as a side, right? And then if you're non-vegetarian, I didn't find a problem, but if you have diabetes, because it is a progressive disease and you could end up with heart disease, you have to limit your yolks. But if you do not have diabetes, then you can have an egg every day. With the fruits and juices, I just want to mention that I can't talk about what the current situation in India is, but the Indians that have moved to America are very fond of fruits and juices. Because if you ask them what you're eating, they will say they eat 5 to 6 fruits every day. Juices are absolutely unhealthy, whether it's fresh juice or the canned juice. And your brain doesn't recognize sugar differently if it's a fruit. Sugar is sugar for your brain, and it is going to spike if you're going to have all these many fruits. Your best friends could be berries, strawberries, blueberries, falsa. All these fruits have a lot of fiber in them. You can have a lot more. When you eat a banana, half a banana. Mangoes are the worst with sugar spikes. Dates, which is, we found that from our, when we worked in a mosque, they were doing roza, which is right now going on, right? They were eating a lot of dates. And so their blood sugar was constantly high when we checked. And then we tried to talk, and they were fasting. So I would think that, but they ate a rather large meal, sehri mein in the morning, and they ate a lot of dates when they broke. So you're fasting, then you eat a lot of dates. What happens? Your sugar goes right up. So that's when we found out dates need to be eaten with something that's protein so that it doesn't. And one single date has 5 grams of carbs. So be careful. Grapes, for a person living with diabetes, 12 grapes is your serving size. You all are going to hate me once I leave, huh? Drinks to choose. Water is the best drink of all. Coffee without sugar. Although there are multiple sweeteners that people are using these days all over the world, but for a person living with diabetes, their gut microbiome is already shifted. I always suggest that instead of sweeteners, if you have to, just take the real sugar. Sugar is a learned taste. So if you start to drink your tea and coffee without sugar, very soon you will start to appreciate that. So if you can do that, that's wonderful. Soy milk is made out of soybeans, and it's very readily available in America. I'm not sure if it is available here, but 1 cup of soy milk has the same amount of protein as regular milk. And so I gave you lots of ideas of what to eat. And I want to talk a little bit in 2 slides of what to limit. So I'm not stopping you from enjoying life or stopping to eat everything, but Indian sweets, sweetened lassi, cookies, biscuits, corn syrup, honey, ice cream, molasses, everything is pure sugar. All your fatty foods, even your whole milk has a lot of saturated fat. So if you are a person that eats meat 2 times a day, plus you consume whole milk, plus you take your ghee, your cholesterol is not going to be in the normal level very easily. I also wanted to talk about condiments because we are lovers of achar and chutneys. Every time I come to India, I have a whole list of achars and chutneys that I like and I like to take from here. But over the years, I have taught people that instead of these sweet chutneys, try to make fresh chutneys. They're almost with no sugar. Instead of fried papad, you can do roasted papad on the gas or in the microwave. Everybody talks about sugar with diabetes. Nobody mentions salt. Salt is also a big problem. Because what happens is with diabetes, as it progresses, you get hypertension. As hypertension progresses, you get heart disease. Most people living with diabetes do not die of diabetes. They die of heart disease. So heart disease is the #1 killer of people living with diabetes. So a person with diabetes should consult a registered dietitian. And in the last decade, the treatment or the management of diabetes has changed in the United States. It is not one size fits all. It is something that you have to sit down with your dietitian, because in the past, people said, stop eating this, this, and this. But what was happening is, for a period of time, they stopped eating all that, and then they came back with a vengeance. And their diabetes again became out of control. So now what they say is, sit down with the foods that you eat so that we could individualize what you are eating. Carbohydrate counting is a tool, and the American Association of Physicians of Indian origin actually 30 years ago gave us a book where we were using for carb counting, and now Dr. Ashwini Wagle, who's a professor in California, has written another book, and I will share both the resources. I think all of you should go through that book, and there's a lot to learn. This is again very important, acceptance of the diagnoses. Oftentimes I see that people take years to start their medication. डॉक्टर ने बोला है बट मैं कर लूँगा सर, इतना वॉक करूँगा या ये खाना छोड़ दूँगा, नंबर ठीक हो जाएगा. Even when you get pre-diabetes, your organs start to get affected. So all the organs will be affected till you manage your blood sugar. So very important for you to actually accept the disease and start managing it, right? A person living with diabetes needs continued monitoring. Diabetes is a disease that keeps changing. And in America, we have different stages of life where we are allowed more visits with the dietitian. So if you move to your son's house, or if you have a child, or if your medication for some other disease gets started, you have to go see your dietitian so that they can fine-tune what you're eating and how your medication works, which is very important. And then motivation for self-care is very poor for people living with diabetes, because we think ek baar ho gayi, jana to hai nahi, kuch bhi khao, mast raho, right? A very fatalistic approach. But most Indians, the Indians living in America are not any different from Indians living. We are the same, and they have the same approaches. It's a progressive disease, and your drugs and your food habits and everything will change as you age. It requires multiple visits. So you must monitor your HbA1c every 6 months and make sure that you're doing well on it. These are like very broad guidelines that we use in America with carbohydrate counting. And today there was not enough time to go deeper on this. But once I share the books, you'll have a chance to learn about it. But these are the assignments for women and men that we assign, and we calculate their food based on their exercise, their height and weight. So I took an example, just one example, using idlis. There, 3 small idlis were 45 grams, half a cup of sambar was 15 grams, and then we added 1 cup of salad. Look at the salad. A large amount of salad only had 5 grams of carb. So they were within their limits. As a woman, only allowed 2 small idlis. I am not trying to keep you all hungry here. You can eat, but you have to plan your meals and snacks. So if this is your meal, 3 hours later, you can have a snack. You can also include some kind of fiber or some kind of protein to this. You have to work with yourself. The intention is not to keep you hungry. The intention is to help you manage your blood sugar by your food. So here are the final takeaways. I think this is very important. Indian hospitality has no second. We are the best. If you don't eat what they offer you, they will put it in your mouth. That's the love we have, right? That would make me nervous sometimes. So I would take something, because if I don't do that, it will go straight in my mouth, which is something we should be very proud of. There's not as much love in other cultures, although all cultures have used food as an approach of showing affection. But I always tell my participants, if they have anybody in their home that has diabetes, don't attach any rewards to food or any celebrations to food. There's so many other ways you can celebrate an occasion, not just by making 10 different sweets. Choose whole grains as much as possible, lean cuts of meat, low-fat dairy. If you eat fish, it has omega-3s, which is very good for your heart and your brain, at least twice a week. And then plant-based, there's a plant-forward initiation that is getting very strong coverage in America. As Indians, we've always done that, right? How many of us have never eaten meat, never planned to eat meat? But now many people in America have stopped eating meat, and they are always looking for protein sources. Make half of your plate vegetables and fruits. Exercise most days of the week. Learn skills to manage stress. If you smoke, today is the day that you might want to rethink about smoking, stop smoking. This last one I wanted to add as a learning tool. The continuous glucose monitors, the Libre is very easily available in India. You can have the app on your phone. Whether you have diabetes or pre-diabetes, I think you should wear it. It is a tool for self-management. You will see what foods are giving you a spike, what you can change. Because when you go to a doctor and you tell them your numbers, they only see a snapshot in your report. Not really the entire picture, but this will give you an entire picture for 14 days. So if you can do that, you should. And for people living with diabetes, I just want to say, take your prescribed medications regularly. Why I do this work is because I meet people like this. I run support groups in a public library, and the name has been changed here. This is a person who was 34 years old, and she said, Robin at the Old Bridge Library recommended that I attend the monthly diabetes support group meetings where I have met some wonderful people. In fact, I am the youngest with some members in their 70s and 80s. This group is the best thing that has happened to me in a long time. At least I don't feel like I got this disease because I ate too much. I don't feel like I'm alone anymore. I don't feel guilty, and I don't feel like it is my fault. I'm forever thankful for this wonderful group and experience. Thank you for understanding my struggle. Each meeting we laugh, I get choked up at times, but most of all, we encourage each other, which is so important. Nearly 4 years since my journey with diabetes began, I have learned an important lesson that living with diabetes is not a solo sport. To maintain a healthy mind, body, and spirit, you absolutely need a strong support system around you. So this is the last slide of my presentation, and I want to leave you all with a video that we created on self-care. पिछली वाली slide में. And Okay, Professor Rizvi, do I have time for questions or?
So thank you, ma'am. A really insightful session. We can take a few short questions because we are running a bit late. So anybody in the audience, if you please raise your hands and our team will reach with the microphone. Yes, please, Dr. Rajesh. Yeah.
Hello, myself Dr. Rajesh Kumari, and thank you so much for your wonderful talk. So my question is that I don't see like big awareness programs at national and international level for diabetes as I see for infectious disease. So like I also work on diabetes and I may be biased, but I'll say that diabetes is even much more dangerous than many infectious diseases. What are your thoughts about it? Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think there is some truth in that, but in the United States, we have different funding lines for infectious disease and we have a funding line for diabetes related. So all this funding of the work that I have done actually comes from that. But the sad part was that although the Indian population has a lot of diabetes and pre-diabetes, we were not targeted audiences. So it took me a long time to bring that awareness. NIH has now observed that the Indians need help, which is why I'm writing this large grant of R01, which will be completely targeted to South Asians. And they recognize that some funding need to be channeled to this population. And also, as Indians, we are becoming rather large in the United States. So any study that will be done there, please, I'm happy to share, and you can duplicate that.
So I have a question.
Sure.
So thank you. I'm Arup. And the question I'm having is there is quite a rage in the West regarding the GLP-1 agonist Ozempic. And I mean, there are many companies in India who are trying to bring it in. So what you have observed in the US, how good is Ozempic? And we have celebrities in India who are taking Ozempic through the gray market. So how good it as a drug it is, the way it has been proclaimed in the media, that it's a wonder drug and diabetes will go away, hypertension will go away. So how good is that, like your observations?
So great question. Ozempic is a rather new drug. What we have seen in our groups is weight loss does affect your diabetes number. It does go away, but Ozempic is rather hyped. What they're not talking about is the side effects after you stop taking Ozempic. We have seen a lot of problems with Ozempic when people stop taking it, and sometimes people are actually in the hospital because they got it from illegal sources because they wanted to lose weight. Also, in America, obesity is much different than what you see here. So you probably have never seen a person who's 400 pounds. We have that kind of obesity where if that person cannot move, I cannot make them exercise. I cannot do too much with their diabetes. That's when the sleeve came, where they started to do those surgeries to remove the part of their stomach so they could lose weight. And for those people, Ozempic is still a gift, but it is not for everybody. I would rather you be part of something like this where you can remove your weight slowly and keep it off. So lifestyle change is the mantra that I want to leave you with, not the drugs.
Anyone else?
I am Bechan Sharma from Faculty of Science. And thank you very much for this illuminating talk. I was looking at any slide, related to the co-infections combined with diabetes. So this has not been addressed at many more levels. So, for example, infectious diseases combined with diabetes, or any other allergic infections combined with diabetes. So how would you like to suggest to manage it? Thank you.
So the question is that there are certain diseases or infections that coexist with diabetes, and what are, did I get your question correctly? Yeah, okay. Once you have diabetes, it reduces your immunity to much lower, right? So once you get an infection with diabetes, it's very hard to treat that infection till your blood sugar is actually brought to a normal range. It's a catch-22 situation where if you have an infection, what happens? Even if it is a common cold, your blood sugar spikes up. Once it's up, it's very difficult to treat you. So a person living with diabetes takes a much longer time to be treated, and it is a high-risk disease. If you get cancer with diabetes, your survival rate is half of a normal person. If you get a stroke after you get diabetes, it's even poorer, 25%. So for anybody, this disease has a lot of comorbidities, because what happens is अंदर से आप कमज़ोर हो गए हैं, तो जो भी बीमारी आपके अगल बगल में है वो आप ले लेंगे, and you will take the longest time to shake it off. So it is very important, that's why, to keep yourself strong. And I have many people that are living with diabetes in my office, and I have rules that if somebody has a cold or a flu, they will not come to the office. They have to take a sick day, or I will allow them to work from home. Because I don't want my people that are living with diabetes to get that infection, because then they will need 2 weeks to recover. Does that answer your questions? Or any other disease that you were thinking? बोलिए बोलिए, माइक ले लीजिए.
Yeah, I needed more insight onto it. But anyway, because at the last, it is the self-management that you have rightly pointed out. But there are several other things that could have been included in to take care of the situation wherein the infections are combined with diabetes.
Definitely. And we see a lot of fungal infection, but lot of these infections are for people that are not managed well. So after today, I hope that you will help the people around you to manage their diabetes. We are normal people. People living with diabetes want to live a normal life. And they can, but they need a lot of support, right? We need to provide that support. We need to watch what we eat, and we need to be kind to ourselves if we are living with that disease. That's it.
Any more questions? Maybe from the students, from the faculty members? So if there are no more questions, I would again like to thank Professor Mathur for this really incredibly beautiful talk, and it did enlighten the audience regarding the vagaries of having a metabolic disorder, but it also showed us a way or path forward where we can fight it back by some lifestyle changes and a lot of tips from Madam regarding that. So we are on the very end of this program, and as we approach this, at the culmination of this memorable event, I would invite the convener of this seminar, Professor S.I. Rizvi sir, to formally propose the vote of thanks. Sir.
What a wonderful presentation. Everyone was glued to the screen and to the speaker. And Madam, let me summarize that you have shown all of us a mirror, and mirrors don't lie. So when you asked us to put our right hand on our tummies, I don't think anybody either said anything, but all of us felt something. So that was the message that you gave all of us. And let me assure you that from this Eid that is coming in 15 days, and the next Diwali and then the next Holi, there will be few gujiyas and few sevais. We, in the Department of Biochemistry and also in other life science departments, are working in various areas of what you spoke. We are working on caloric restriction and alternate day fasting, intermittent fasting. There are some groups which are working on diabetes, and we have also completed a project in which not only pre-diabetes, but we also analyzed the siblings of diabetic patients. So even before they develop pre-diabetes, what are the changes that occur in siblings? Because quite possibly in next 10-15 years, they might also go into the pre-diabetic stage. So these are some of the things, and I'm sure some of the PIs will be in touch with you to initiate such kind of programs. So now my duty was to propose a vote of thanks. The vote of thanks starts with the Honorable Vice Chancellor, who very graciously gave some money for this program, and she was telling me that this is the fag end of March, and there are huge piles of files waiting in her office. But then I coaxed her to come here for a couple of hours. Thank you, madam, so much. My thanks, as I have already told in the beginning, are due to the keynote speaker to have come and grace this occasion. And this, what a wonderful lecture. All of us felt into it, that we were already living this. And I've realized something. When you made us, all of us stand, we realized that all of us are related in some way or the other. The type of relation that we have with each one of us is that we are predisposed to diabetes. So this is a big relationship between all of us. Let me thank the large number of team members who played a big role. And I start with Professor Ajay Jetli. We had certain thoughts about in this program, how to make this program successful. And Professor Ajay Jetli was the man who translated our thoughts into all these beautiful settings. Let's have a big clap if he's here. Then I would like to thank Professor Neelam Yadav, Professor Neetu Mishra, Professor Shefali Nandan, who were all part of the team, the registrar, who was always helpful, the ICT cell, the proctor, and other members, the state manager. So let me thank all of us. But being a captain of the team, I probably take the glory, but not so. It was all the team members who played their part. I played the least amount of cricket, and I got out. But all of us, you did very well. And all the students and participants who submitted their posters, and I'll take the Honorable Vice Chancellor and the keynote speaker to the second floor to show them the beautiful posters that we have. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. And with this, we will be concluding this formal program. May I request everyone to please be kindly seated as our Honorable Vice Chancellor, our Chief Guest, and dignitaries are escorted to the second floor lounge for high tea. I would request our teachers, Professor Ashish Khare sir, Professor N.K. Shukla sir, Professor S.I. Rizvi sir, Professor Manmohan Krishna sir, if he is here, Professor Neetu Mishra, Professor Neelam Yadav, and Professor Shefali Nandan to kindly escort Honorable Vice Chancellor ma'am and our Chief Guest, Professor Shailja Mathur. I warmly invite all other teachers and participants to join us for the high tea arranged at the ground floor. Thank you for your wonderful participation and cooperation throughout the program. Have a great day ahead. Thank you. क्या करो, डिलीट
डिलीट कर देना।